What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny Brook. Welcome back to another Crafted Workshop video. And in this week's video, I'm going to show you how I turned this bowl out of old broken skateboards. Let's go ahead and get started. This project started when I asked my buddy Ben from Woby Design to send me a blank that I could turn. I had seen some bowls turned from these old skateboard pieces, and I really wanted to give it a shot myself. So Ben specializes in making things out of old broken skateboards and has a really great setup for gluing up these blanks with a bottle jack. So little did I know he was going to send me a package full of blanks, so I'll definitely be making some more things in the future out of these old skateboard pieces, but I was really excited to get going on this bowl. So to get the blank mounted on the lathe, I decided to use a faceplate, so I first needed to get one face of the blank flat. I used my jointer for this, but a hand plane would definitely get you close enough. After flattening that face, I marked the center and then screwed on the faceplate, making sure to pre-drill since this is basically a big chunk of plywood edge grain. Next, I got the faceplate mounted on the lathe, set my speed to about 700 RPM for roughing, got my tool rest in place, making sure the blank wasn't going to hit it, and got to roughing out the shape. And this was a little hard, especially on my hands, since this blank was so out of round and chunks of the blank just wanted to pop off as I went. And I was also mostly turning air at this point when I started roughing, but I eventually got the piece mostly round. Next, I started cleaning up the bottom, first facing it off and then cutting a recess for my chuck jaws. And I made sure to really take my time and sneak up on the fit here, as I really didn't have a ton of wiggle room before making those walls of the recess too thin. So with the recess cut, I continued shaping the outside of the bowl until I got really close to the final shape. I used my woodpecker's carbide tools on this project, and they have a really great feature of being able to turn the tool 45 degrees and make a shearing cut. And this really smooths out the surface and helped remove any tear out on the surface of the bowl. Next, using this drill mounted sanding pad, I sanded the outside of the bowl up to 220 grit, and I definitely made sure to wear my respirator here, as this creates just an insane amount of dust. So with the outside of the bowl sanded, I installed my chuck in the recess of the bottom of the bowl and then flipped the whole thing around, installing the chuck on the headstock and then removing the faceplate from the bowl. Next came the process of hollowing out the bowl, and again, since this whole piece was basically plywood edge grain, this was a little bit rough, so I decided to instead drill a hole to my final depth using a 2-inch Forstner bit, just to help remove a good portion of that waste and also to help set my final depth. This was a super slow process, and I had to run the lathe at about 250 RPM to keep the bit from getting too hot, but I eventually got the hole drilled and could continue hollowing out the bowl, which went really quickly now that the center of the bowl was gone. I switched over to my round carbide tool at this point and just continued removing material until I got an even wall thickness all the way down. And I recently picked up one of these calipers, and they're really helpful in telling me where more material needed to be removed. I also picked up a curved tool rest, and it made getting into the very bottom of the bowl a lot easier, although the camera wasn't in the best spot here and I was basically blocking the entire view. So next, I sanded the inside of the bowl up to 220 grit, again with the foam sanding pad. So while I'm sanding, let's talk about the sponsor of this week's video, Bombfell. Bombfell is an easier way for men to get better clothes delivered to their door. So I live in a fairly small town with pretty limited shopping options and really just don't have time to shop for clothes. So being able to try clothes on at home was really great and allowed me to do it whenever I had a few minutes. So after taking a quick questionnaire, Bombfell matches you with a stylist who helps put together your first outfit. Once you receive the clothes, you can try them on, and if you don't like them, you can ship them back free of charge. But on each shipment, the more items you keep, the bigger discount you get. Keep 4 items and get 20% off, 3 items 15% off, and 2 items 10% off. So Bombfell wants to give you guys, my viewers, $25 off your first purchase, and all you need to do is visit bombfell.com/crafted to get started. Thanks again to Bombfell for sponsoring this week's video, and let's get back to the project. So for the finish on this bowl, I wanted to experiment with using some Total Boat tabletop epoxy. Even after sanding, the surface of the bowl had some voids and other imperfections due to the fact that this was made from old skateboards, and I figured a few coats of epoxy would really help to fill any of those voids and give the surface a nice, smooth, even feel. So on this first coat, I applied way too much epoxy, and it was also too cold in my shop. This meant that I had a good number of drips and sags, and that the epoxy didn't self-level as well. So I basically had to remove all of this epoxy once it cured and then try again, this time using a much thinner coat and also warming the epoxy in some warm water before applying. And after applying 2 thin coats this way, this was the surface I was left with, which was pretty much close to perfect. I actually considered just leaving it exactly how it was at this point, but I wanted to really level the surface and then buff it out to more of an even gloss. I started with 220 grit sandpaper on the foam pad just to level things out, and then worked my way up to 500 grit with hand sanding. For the finish on top of the epoxy, I used Yorkshire grit, which I've seen some other epoxy turners use with a lot of success. I first applied the regular Yorkshire grit, following the directions on the can, and then after getting an even surface with that, I moved up to the microfine version, which further refined the surface and left me with a beautiful even sheen. The last thing to deal with was the bottom of the bowl, and I got an idea from watching David Picciuto's recent bowl turning video. I laser cut a piece to cover up the inside of the recess and also added my maker's mark, and Ben had included some thinner pieces that were perfect for this. So I just glued the piece onto the bottom of the bowl with some CA glue, and then poured on a thin layer of Total Boat high performance epoxy to finish it. All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed this project. I love the way this thing came out. I've been wanting to build something out of old broken skateboards for a long time. I grew up skateboarding a ton, and I've seen a lot of really cool stuff made out of this stuff. Really, they're super solid. Usually skateboards are made out of hard maple, multiple veneers of hard maple, so they're very strong, and it was actually pretty easy to work with. It didn't want to come apart. Obviously, that's a testament to Ben's glue up capabilities. All of these laminations are super clean. I really think finishing this with that tabletop epoxy and then just smoothing it out just gave it this beautiful, very smooth surface finish, and I just absolutely love it. I think even the little laser cut bottom is super cool. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you don't already, go ahead and get subscribed. I put out new project videos like this pretty much every week. Also ring that little notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. Also, I'll have links to all the tools and materials I use down in the video description below. And last, I have added that YouTube sponsor functionality. I put out a monthly behind the scenes video, plus they get exclusive access to all kinds of goodies like extra plans and that kind of stuff. So go check that out. I'll have a link to that somewhere on the screen as well. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and until next week, happy building.